The white marble of the living room sparkled beneath the crystal chandelier. On her knees, Amina Diallo ran the cloth across the spotless tiles. Her reddened hands trembled slightly. Behind her, the laughter of Madame Sarr's guests echoed like shards of glass breaking. "Ladies, you simply cannot trust anyone these days," declared Madame Sarr, her gold bracelets clinking together. "My pearl necklace vanished this morning." Amina clenched her jaw. 4 years she had worked in this villa in Almadies, and every month the same accusation. "Amina, come here, right now!" She crossed the living room, aware of every gaze weighing upon her faded uniform, upon her worn sandals. Madame Sarr, imposing in her golden wax dress, stood up. "Open your bag." "Ma'am, I haven't taken any." "I said open your bag." Amina held out her old patch bag. Madame Sarr dumped it onto the table. The contents spilled out. Stale bread, a dog-eared photo of Malik in his school uniform, generic paracetamol, a wallet containing 2,500 CFA francs. The guests exchanged embarrassed glances. "Pathetic," murmured Madame Sarr. "This is all they own, and yet they steal." "I haven't stolen anything, ma'am." "Liar, gather your things and leave. You no longer work here." Amina collected her meager belongings, the photo of Malik, her 6-year-old son, with the weak heart requiring an 8 million franc operation. She locked eyes with Madame Sarr. "May God forgive you, ma'am." She left through the service entrance, never through the main door. Never. The sun hammered down on Bourguiba Avenue. Yellow taxis honking, rapid transit buses spewing black smoke, street vendors weaving between vehicles. Amina walked toward the bus stop, her feet burning. 4 years of savings lost. How would she pay for Malik's operation now? How would she pay the rent? That's when she saw her. In the middle of the intersection, an elderly woman in an immaculate white boo-boo, frozen, trying to cross. Cars grazed past her, horns blaring. Amina stopped. Her exhausted body screamed at her to keep going, but her legs carried her toward the roadway. "Auntie, let me help you." She gently took hold of the old woman's arm. The woman turned toward her a wrinkled face, but her eyes were disturbingly clear, almost luminous. Together, they crossed under the protests of drivers. On the opposite sidewalk, near Sandaga Market, the old woman placed her warm hand on Amina's. "You have your grandmother's heart," she murmured in a deep voice. Amina blinked. "Pardon?" She would be proud. The old woman rummaged in her basket and pulled out a small pouch embroidered with golden threads. She pressed it into Amina's palm with surprising strength. "Take care of what belongs to you, my daughter. The time of lies is over." "But who are you?" A rapid transit bus stopped abruptly, disgorging passengers. Amina stepped back. When she turned around 3 seconds later, the old woman had disappeared, evaporated into the dense market crowd. In the packed rapid transit bus toward Medina, squeezed between passengers, Amina stared at the embroidered pouch on her lap. "You have your grandmother's heart." She had never known her grandmother. Her mother, Aissatou, who died when she was 7, never spoke of the past, never about family. And now this old woman appeared with prophetic words and this mysterious pouch. Amina clutched the pouch against her heart, feeling something hard inside. Around her, Dakar continued to live, vendors shouting their prices, radio blasting mbalax, smell of sweat and diesel. But Amina was elsewhere, in the luminous gaze of a stranger who seemed to see in her something she herself didn't know. The time of lies is over. Who was this woman? And above all, what was in this pouch that burned between her fingers like a promise or a curse? The rapid transit bus dropped Amina at the entrance to Medina as the sun was setting. The air vibrated with a different energy, that of working-class neighborhoods where life pulses despite poverty. Street vendors shouted their prices, displaying smoked fish and vegetables on frayed mats. The rich smell of teboudienne escaped from interior courtyards. Barefoot children played soccer with a rag ball. In the distance, the call to Maghreb prayer rose from the mosque, soothing and familiar. Amina zigzagged through narrow alleys to her shared courtyard. 6 families shared this dilapidated patio with peeling walls. She knocked on Fatu's door. Yay! A little boy with enormous eyes threw himself into her arms. Malik, my heart. Amina pressed him against her, breathing in the scent of shea butter in his braided hair. He was so light, too light for his 6 years. The cardiologist had been clear. Without surgery, his fragile heart wouldn't last beyond next year. Fatu appeared, imposing in her indigo boo-boo stained with sewing thread. You're home early. Everything all right? Amina's face closed. She fired me. Again, that woman. Fatu spat on the ground. She'll go to hell, inshallah. After sharing a meager dinner of bread and peanuts with Malik, Amina put him to bed on their mattress placed directly on the floor of their single room. The walls oozed humidity. A bare bulb hung from the ceiling, her entire universe fit within 12 square meters. When Malik fell asleep, Amina finally took out the embroidered pouch. Her fingers trembled as she untied the cord. Inside, a yellowed photograph, fragile as a dead leaf. An elegant young woman, perhaps 25, stood before a majestic colonial villa with wrought iron balconies. She wore a sophisticated wax ensemble and smiled with quiet confidence. Amina brought the photo close to the bulb. Her heart leapt. The face, the high cheekbones, the broad forehead, the shape of the eyes. It was like looking at herself in a mirror distorted by time. She turned the photo over. An elegant handwriting in black ink, partially faded, for Amina Fatu Diallo, legitimate heir. A key fell from the pouch with a metallic clink. Old, made of copper, with an address engraved in the metal. Villa 17, Fan Residence. Heir? Fan Residence? That was one of the most upscale neighborhoods in Dakar, light years away from Medina. The next morning, Amina knocked at Uncle Musa's door, 3 doors down. The old man, a former driver for Dakar's wealthy families, was the neighborhood's living memory. He opened, leaning on his cane. Amina, what brings you so early? Uncle, I need your help. In his room, cluttered with yellowed newspapers and old framed photographs, she handed him the photo. Uncle Musa grabbed it. His eyes widened. The photo nearly slipped from his hands. Where did you find this? An old woman gave it to me yesterday. Who is this? He sat down heavily, his face turning ashen. That's the Diallo Faye villa. The Diallo Faye? A prosperous family. Textile merchants, highly respected. Everything disappeared in 1987. He stared at the photo as if it burned him. There was a scandal. People talked about falsified documents, stolen inheritance. Mariama Diallo Faye's daughter, Aissatou, I believe, was pregnant without being married. A disgrace at the time. Then nothing. Silence. The villa was closed. Amina felt her throat tighten. Aissatou, that was my mother's name. Uncle Musa raised a meaningful gaze toward her. Your mother never told you anything about her family. Never. She said we had no one. The old man sighed deeply. Perhaps she wanted to protect you. The Diallo Faye. Their disappearance caused gossip. Some said that relatives had stolen everything after Mariama's death. Amina squeezed the key in her palm until she felt the metal bite her skin. That night, lying next to sleeping Malik, Amina replayed in her mind her 4 years with the Sars, Madame Sar searching her bag every evening. You never know with these people. Madame Sar forbidding her to drink from the same glasses as the family. You'll use the plastic cup. It's more hygienic. Madame Sar paying her salary 3 weeks late. You should be grateful to have a job. Madame Sar making her eat leftovers standing in the kitchen, never at the table. 4 years of humiliations swallowed in silence. For Malik. Always for Malik. But now, this photo, this key, this address, legitimate heir. What if her mother hadn't been a poor woman without family, as she had always believed? What if someone had stolen something that rightfully belonged to her? The time of lies is over, the old woman had said. Amina made her decision in the darkness of her stifling room. Next Sunday, she would go to Fan Residence. She would discover what this key opened. She would discover who she truly was. Sunday morning, 8 o'clock. Amina held Malik's hand in the taxi heading up to Fan Residence. The little boy pressed his nose against the window, amazed by the wide avenues lined with flowering flamboyance. Yay! It's beautiful here. Beautiful, yes, and so far from their reality. The contrast struck her like a slap. In Medina, narrow alleys teemed with noisy life, vendors, children, dust. Here, silence reigned like a privilege. Immense villas hid behind impeccable white walls. Lush gardens overflowed with bougainvillea, hibiscus, royal palms. Gleaming SUVs parked in front of wrought iron gates. Not a single piece of trash on the paved sidewalks. Not a shout, just the murmur of wind in the foliage and the distant song of birds. The taxi stopped in front of number 17. Amina paid with her last bills and got out, Malik clinging to her dress. The villa rose before them, ghost-like. Wild purple bougainvillea had invaded the facade like a conquering army. Twisted branches clung to rusted balconies, closed shutters, crumbling colonial columns. The wrought iron gate, once majestic, was eaten by rust. Behind the bars, an abandoned garden stretched out, transformed into jungle. Amina pulled the key from her pocket. Her hand trembled. "Whose house is this, Yaye?" "I don't know yet, my heart." She slid the key into the gate's lock. It turned with a metallic screech that tore through the silence. The gate yielded slowly, as if reluctantly. "What are you doing there?" Amina jumped. A man emerged from the neighboring garden, tall, elegantly in his 30s, wearing a white shirt rolled up over muscular forearms. His face was stern, suspicious. I have a key," she stammered, holding up the object like evidence. He approached, frowning. "This property has been abandoned for 30 years. Where did you get that key?" "Someone gave it to me." "Who gave it to you?" Malik hid behind his mother, intimidated by the man's stature. He noticed, and his face instantly softened. "Sorry, I didn't mean to." He crouched to get to the child's level. "What's your name?" "Malik," the little boy murmured. "Malik, that's a beautiful name. Do you like flowers?" The child nodded, eyes fixed on the purple bougainvillea cascading like a flowered waterfall. The man stood and extended his hand to Amina. "Sheikh Ndiaye, architect. I bought the villa next door 6 months ago to renovate it. Amina Diallo." Their hands touched briefly. His was warm, firm, without condescension. Amina realized she wasn't used to a man from this world looking at her as an equal. "Diallo," he repeated slowly. "Do you have a connection to the former owners?" "I don't know. That's what I'm here to find out." Sheikh observed the key, then the villa, then Amina. Something passed in his gaze. Curiosity, perhaps compassion. This house belonged to the Diallo Faye family, prosperous merchants in the 80s. They mysteriously disappeared in 1987. Disappeared? How? The owner, Mariama Diallo Faye, died suddenly. Her only daughter was reportedly dispossessed of the inheritance by malicious relatives. Fraud, document falsification. Rumors spoke of scandal, but nothing was ever proven. The property has been legally blocked since. No one has the right to enter. Amina's heart pounded in her chest. What if I had the right? Sheikh stared at her for a long time. "You think you're—" "I don't know what I think. But this key was in a pouch intended for Amina Fatou Diallo, legitimate heir." A silence fell, heavy with possibilities. Malik tugged at his mother's dress. "Yaye, can I have a flower?" Sheikh smiled. "Come on, buddy. I'll help you." He lifted Malik with natural ease, hoisting him to the low branches of the bougainvillea. The child picked a purple flower with a laugh of pure joy. Sheikh set him down gently, ruffled his hair. Amina watched them, a lump in her throat. No one, ever, had treated her son with such selfless tenderness. At the SARS, Malik was invisible, like her, a burden, an inconvenience. Sheikh caught her gaze. Their eyes met over the child's head. Something passed between them, tenuous as a silk thread, solid as a silent promise. "Do you want to explore the villa?" he asked softly. "Yes. I'll help you. I have contacts at the land registry. We can find the property archives, verify the titles, understand what happened." "Why would you do that? You don't know me." Sheikh shrugged. "Let's just say I'm tired of seeing injustice triumph. And besides, he hesitated, you look like someone seeking truth, not money. That changes everything. Together they advanced into the abandoned garden. The tall grass reached their knees. Malik ran ahead, picking flowers, laughing joyfully in this space where no one chased him away. Amina walked alongside Sheikh, aware of his reassuring presence, troubled by how easily she trusted him. They reached the main facade. The windows were opaque with dust and cobwebs. Sheikh wiped a pane with his sleeve. Look, Amina leaned in. Through the dirty glass, in the penumbra of the abandoned living room, she made out a large portrait hanging on the wall. A woman in traditional attire, perhaps seated in a carved wooden armchair, looked at the camera with quiet pride. The face, the cheekbones, the forehead, the eyes. Amina brought a trembling hand to her mouth. It was her own face, looking back at her from the past. 3 days later, Amina stood in the hushed office of the National Land Registry, Sheikh at her side. The official placed before them a stack of yellow documents tied with red string. Diallo Faye file, property blocked since 1987. Amina's hands trembled as she undid the knot. Sheikh helped her spread the documents on the table. Deed of ownership, 1965. Villa 17, Fan Residence, acquired by Mariama Diallo Faye, merchant. Death certificate, March 15th, 1987. Mariama Diallo Faye, 58 years old, cardiac arrest. Holographic will, dated March 10th, 1987. I bequeath all my property to my only daughter, Aissatou Diallo. Amina's heart stopped. Aissatou, her mother. She continued leafing through, tears blurring her vision. Medical report, March 20th, 1987, signed Dr. Badian. Aissatou Diallo presents severe mental disorders, paranoid delusions, emotional instability, unfit to manage an estate. Judicial decision, April 3rd, 1987. Given the mental state of the heir, guardianship of the property is entrusted to Mamadou Sarr, uncle by marriage, until recovery. New will, April 10th, 1987. Mariama Diallo Faye bequeaths all her property to her nephew, Mamadou Sarr. No, murmured Amina. No, this isn't possible. Sheikh placed a hand on her shoulder. This second will is a fake. Look at the date. It's dated after your grandmother's death. Mamadou Sarr. The name resonated like a gong strike. Madame Sarr's husband. You know him? He died 5 years ago. But his wife, Amina's voice broke. I worked for her for 4 years. As a domestic, silence fell like a stone into a well. Sheikh looked at her, horrified. You worked for the people who stole your inheritance. She knew. The tears flowed now, uncontrollable. She knew who I was. That's why she treated me like vermin. That's why she savored every humiliation. She knew. Amina stood abruptly, almost knocking over her chair. She ran out of the office, Sheikh on her heels. In the abandoned villa's garden, Amina collapsed at the foot of a bougainvillea. Her entire body trembled with rage and pain. My mother, she sobbed. They destroyed her. They declared her insane to steal what was hers. She was pregnant, alone, and they chased her away like a dog. Sheikh sat beside her in the tall grass without a word. He simply waited for the storm to pass. She died in a room in Gueule Tapée when I was 7, Amina continued in a broken voice. She had nothing, nothing. She did laundry for others to feed us. I saw her cry at night and I didn't understand why. Now I know. She cried over what was stolen from her, her dignity, her name, her future. And you worked for them, murmured Sheikh. 4 years, on my knees, humiliated, searched, despised. Amina raised reddened eyes to him. While I cleaned their marble floors, I walked on my own inheritance. Sheikh looked away, jaw clenched. We can contest, legally. This will is obviously fake. The medical report too, probably. But what? We need a good lawyer, very good, and very expensive. The Sarrs have political connections, judges in their pockets. It'll be a long and costly battle. I have nothing. Amina laughed bitterly. I don't even have a job anymore. We also need solid evidence, witnesses, original documents showing the falsification. The old woman. Amina sat up abruptly. The one who gave me the key. She must know something. She said, "The time of lies is over." She knows. Can you find her? I don't even know her name. A heavy silence settled. In the wild garden, birds sang, indifferent to human drama. Sheikh picked up a fallen bougainvillea flower. He twirled it between his fingers. "You know why I renovate old houses?" he said suddenly. Amina looked at him, surprised by the change of subject. "Because I'm tired of building villas for rich and empty people." His voice was bitter. "My father wants me to marry a minister's daughter. A strategic alliance, he says. She's beautiful, well-educated, and we have absolutely nothing to say to each other. I live in a gilded cage, Amina. I eat from porcelain plates and I'm starving inside." He turned toward her, a gaze of disturbing intensity. You fight for truth, for your dignity, for your son. You're richer than all the people I know. Something passed between them deeper than sympathy, a mutual recognition, two beings wounded by different injustices but equally real. "I'm going to help you," declared Sheikh firmly, "not out of pity, out of conviction, because what happened to you is unacceptable. I know honest lawyers. I'll pay the initial fees, and we'll fight." "Why would you do that?" "Because you reminded me why I became an architect. To restore what has been destroyed. Not just buildings." He gently placed his hand on hers. "Lives, too." Amina felt something warm in her chest, something she thought had died long ago. Hope, and perhaps something else that she didn't yet dare name. "We need to find that old woman," she said, wiping her tears. "She's the key to everything. We'll look for her, together." Amina nodded. She stood, helped by Sheikh, and looked at the abandoned villa that rightfully belonged to her. One day, she would cross that threshold not as a thief, but as an heir. But first, she had to find a mysterious old woman in white who had disappeared into the Dakar crowd. A woman who held the evidence capable of bringing down the Tsar's empire of lies. Fatou knew everyone in Medina and neighboring quarters. Uncle Musa had the memory of names and faces. Together, they combed through Gueule Tapée, questioning old market vendors, tailors set up on sidewalks, building guards. On the third day, a Bissap vendor pointed them to a faded building near the mosque. Seynabou Faye, second floor. She rarely goes out. Amina climbed the dark staircase, heart pounding. She knocked on a peeling wooden door. "Come in, Amina. I'm expecting you." The voice was the one from Bourguiba Avenue, deep, serene, almost timeless. Amina pushed the door. In a tiny but impeccably clean room, the old woman in white sat on a mat, a rosary between her fingers. "You knew I would come? For 28 years, I've been waiting for this moment." Seynabou raised luminous eyes to her. "Sit down, my child. It's time you knew the whole truth." Amina sat, legs trembling. "I was your grandmother Mariama's domestic, not a simple employee, a sister. She took me in when I was an orphan." The old woman caressed her rosary. "I watched your mother Aissatou grow up, intelligent, proud, beautiful, then get pregnant. The scandal. Mariama died of cardiac arrest 5 days after the announcement, heartbroken by the shame. And Mamadou Sarr?" Seynabou's face hardened. "A snake. He falsified the medical certificate with a corrupt doctor. He had your mother forcibly committed for 3 days, time enough to steal the original documents and produce a fake will. When Aissatou got out, she had nothing left. Pregnant, alone, cast out. You witnessed all that and did nothing." "I tried." Seynabou's eyes shone with ancient tears. "But who listens to an old domestic against a powerful man? I took what I could save. Mariama's letters, the original will, banking evidence. I waited for someone from the lineage to return, someone worthy." She stood and pulled a metal box from a cabinet. "On the avenue, when you helped me despite your own pain, I saw your grandmother in you, the same heart, the same dignity." Seynabou opened the box. Inside, yellowed envelopes, administrative documents, photographs. "Here is your inheritance, Amina. Not the money, the truth." Monday morning, 9 o'clock. Amina stood before the Almadi's villa, flanked by Sheikh and Maître Diop, a lawyer with grey hair and a steely gaze. "Are you ready?" asked Sheikh. Amina nodded. She wore her finest dress, the one she kept for celebrations. Today she wasn't coming as a domestic. She was coming as an heir. They rang. The guard opened, surprised. "Amina! Madam fired you. You can't—" "I'm not here to work." They entered. Madame Sarr appeared in the living room, dressed in a silk robe. Her face went from surprise to fury. "How dare you come back here? Guard! Call the poli—" "I am Maître Diop," the lawyer interrupted in an icy voice. "I represent Miss Amina Fatou Diallo, legitimate heir of the Diallo Faye estate." Silence fell like an axe. Madame Sarr went pale. What are you talking about?" "You know perfectly well what I'm talking about." Amina stepped forward, her voice firm. "You and your husband stole my mother's inheritance in 1987. You humiliated me for 4 years, knowing exactly who I was. You're crazy, like your mother." Maître Diop placed a folder on the glass table. "Original will of Mariama Diallo Faye. Medical certificate proving that the mental instability report on Aissatou Diallo was fraudulent. Signed testimony from Seynabou Faye. Bank statements showing the embezzlements." Madame Sarr grabbed the documents with a trembling hand, her face decomposed. This is impossible. These documents were destroyed. Seynabou Faye preserved them for 28 years. Amina smiled, but her eyes were ice. She was waiting for the right moment. Monsieur Sarr emerged from the bedroom, panicked. "What's happening here?" "Your lie just collapsed," replied Sheikh. Madame Sarr screamed, "Get out of my house! I'm calling my lawyers! You don't know who you're dealing with." "With thieves," said Amina simply, "and justice will be served." She turned on her heels and left, head held high, followed by Sheikh and Maître Diop. Behind her she heard an object shatter against a wall. Sunset over Yoff Beach. The Atlantic Ocean rolled its waves onto the golden sand. Malik ran barefoot, collecting seashells, laughing joyfully. Amina and Sheikh sat on a washed-up filau trunk, feet in the warm sand. "You were magnificent today," said Sheikh softly. "I just told the truth. No, you reclaimed your dignity." He turned toward her, an intense gaze. "You taught me something, Amina. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's standing tall despite it." Their shoulders touched. Amina felt her heart race. "You also taught me something," she murmured, "that some men see people, not their poverty." Che took her hand, his fingers intertwined with hers naturally, as if they had always been destined to meet. "I'm breaking off my engagement tomorrow." Amina looked at him surprised. "I don't want to live in lies anymore, or in arrangement. I want—" He hesitated, vulnerable. "I want something real." Their faces drew closer slowly. The first kiss was timid, sweet, cradled by the sound of waves and Malik's distant laughter. When they separated, Amina had tears in her eyes. "I don't know what tomorrow holds." "Then let's build it together." Maître Diop's phone rang as they were returning. His voice became grave. "A trial will take at minimum 2 years. The Sarrs will use all their contacts to delay." Amina's heart tightened. 2 years. Malik might not have 2 years. The next day, an envelope was slipped under her door. Inside, a letter from Madame Sarr. 50 million CFA francs. Enough for your son's operation. In exchange, you drop all charges and keep silent. Accept, or your son will die while you wait for justice. Amina stared at the figure, hands trembling. 50 million. Malik's life. Immediately. Or justice, truth, her dignity. In 2 years, maybe. Amina tore Madame Sarr's letter into 1,000 pieces. "Are you sure?" asked Fatou, worried. 50 million. Malik's operation. My grandmother didn't build this inheritance to have it sold for silence. My son must know that his mother didn't bend. The next day, Maître Diop filed the complaint and decided to make noise. The case exploded in the Senegalese press. Sarr scandal, 28 years of lies. Le Soleil, humiliated domestic was legitimate heir. Sud Quotidien. Social media erupted. Thousands of Senegalese shared the story. Collectives organized demonstrations. Pro bono lawyers joined Maître Diop. The pressure mounted like a tide. The Sarrs, overwhelmed by evidence and popular indignation, watched their allies abandon them. 6 months later, Judge Ndiaye rendered his verdict in a packed courtroom. Complete restitution of the property to Miss Amina Fatou Diallo. Damages of 90 million CFA francs. The gavel struck. The room exploded in applause. Justice was served. Thanks to the damages, Malik was operated on 3 months later. The operation lasted 7 hours. When he woke, smiling weakly, Amina understood that all her choices had meaning. Yai, are we going to live in the house with purple flowers? Yes, my heart. And you're going to plant a tree for your great-grandmother. 1 year after the verdict, the villa reopened its doors as the Mariama Diallo Faye Center, free training for young women from working-class neighborhoods, sewing, computer skills, management, literacy. Fatou directed the sewing workshop. Seynabou, installed on the ground floor, told the family story to apprentices. Sheikh, who had broken his engagement, supervised the renovations, finally building for a just cause. At the center of the restored garden, Malik had planted a young bougainvillea with a plaque, in memory of Mariama and Aissatou Diallo. The SARS, ruined, had left Dakar. Amina felt no joy from their fall, just a deep peace. Inauguration day. Hundreds of people crowded into the garden, Medina residents, journalists, young women who came to enroll. Amina, dressed in an elegant blue and gold wax ensemble, climbed onto the platform. Malik held her hand. Sheikh stood back, smiling. Fatou was already crying. Silence fell. A year ago, I worked on my knees in this villa, humiliated, invisible. Today, I stand upright to honor all those who have been broken, erased, forgotten. Her voice grew stronger. My grandmother taught me that our dignity is not found in what the world gives us or steals from us. It resides in what we choose to do when life brings us to our knees. Eyes were riveted on her. I stand for all those who have been invisible. For my mother Aissatou, destroyed by lies. For Seynabou, who kept the truth alive for 28 years. For Fatou, who supported me when I had nothing. For all the women of Medina, of Gueule Tapée, of Yoff, who fight every day with a dignity no one sees. Tears flowed on faces, because true wealth is never in the walls of a villa. It's in the heart that refuses to harden despite wounds. In the hand extended to an old woman crossing the street. In the conviction that goodness, even trampled, always ends up finding its way back to the light. Applause erupted, powerful, endless. Malik looked up at his mother. Yaye, are you a queen? Amina lifted him, smiling through her tears. No, my heart, I'm just a woman who refused to stay on her knees. Sheikh approached and put an arm around her. Together, they watched the crowd, the garden, the bougainvillea, dancing in the Atlantic breeze of Dakar. The inheritance was recovered, not just materially, spiritually, and in the heart of every woman present that day, a seed of hope had just been planted. This story reminds us that dignity can never be stolen, only surrendered. Amina chose truth over ease, and it was precisely that choice that transformed not only her life, but that of an entire community. Sometimes a simple act of kindness toward a stranger can trigger a chain of events that restores justice and renews hope. True wealth doesn't reside in what we possess, but in the integrity with which we live our lives. What city are you watching from? Drop a comment below.